Hey everybody, I'm going to do a tutorial today on how I get my rusting. How do I get it to look like this? So if you want to see how, make sure you stay tuned. Okay everybody, yeah, I was going to rust this up and put it with the next video for the Autocar A64B video, and yeah, I ended up making it way too long, so hopefully this video isn't too long. But yeah, I'm going to show you how to do this, and you won't see this on the Autocar video, but I'll be putting this out before that video. So here's a tutorial on how to get this type of rusting effect, weathering effect. So here we go. Let's get to it. Okay, guys. So I got everything cleaned up here. So we've got the cab. Now what I'm going to be using is 320 sandpaper. Okay, and yeah, it sounds aggressive, but you're not really using it as aggressive as you would normally. I've also got some 600. Okay, now of course you've seen these before. We got light rust. It's the 301 oxide. All right, and I've got the orange rust, 71 130. I got the wash at 74 505, and I've got dark rust at 302. Okay, got my paintbrush, my water, and I've got a wet palette here as well. So what you're going to do, and before I painted all of this, I started off with a rust color as a base. Okay, just a red oxide primer out of an aerosol can, right? So I got that color down, and then I also fogged with a flat medium brown. Not quite as dark as this, but just kind of fogged it around to give different patterns and stuff on it, so that no matter where you sand it through, you're going to get some sort of variation. So this here, you don't want to put a lot of pressure because you're going to put some deep gouges in. I'm just lightly sanding, and I'm going in a circle as much as possible. And what you're trying to do is just break through the blue color, or whatever color you have. You're trying to go break through the main color. That's all you're trying to do. Now you're trying to get the high area where the sun would normally hit, right? Now you're going to want to constantly clean this off. I use my pants, but you can use paper towel or whatever. And you can check your work as you go. You know, you can see where it started, and I haven't done much there. I'm not aggressively sanding this. Now it's probably hard to see, but right here you can see some of the brown starting to show through. Okay, you don't want to work in one spot too much. You want to move around a lot. Now, depending on how you put your paint on, some areas will probably be a little thicker than others. And constantly wipe it. So see, I wiped it, and look, it's starting to show right here now. Right? So you're going to try and continue to sand, but when you're getting to this point, this paint here might be a little thicker than this point, this spot. So you want to sand here more and sand here more. You want to try and stay away from this until you get more of a uniform area showing, right? And it's starting to come through in this spot here and a little bit here. So now that you've got it at this point, and you can see I'm starting to get down into the white plastic. That's not a big deal because you're going to be using your Vallejo paints or whatever paints you're using, and you're going to, in a sense, fix that. But now at this point, to try and get rid of your heavier scratches, which, you know, it's actually quite smooth, I'm just going to use my 600, and I'm going to just lightly so there you go. So now that we've evened it out, and it's actually quite smooth now, I will be taking my 3000 and going along the edge here just to get rid of some of that shine, and then we're going to be good to go. Okay, so I got 3000 foam, right? And I'm just going to, in a sense, somewhat polish it, but make it slightly dull. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the 3000 after, but what part of what you're trying to do is where you left off, you're trying to blend in your heavier sanding marks with the rest of the paint so that you don't have this hard edge of where you stop sanding. And you're also just trying to smooth it out and feather it out to make the paint still look a bit shiny, but yet dulled out a bit from the sun and age. So now I'm going to take rubbing alcohol, which I forgot to tell you that you're going to need, but rubbing alcohol and some paper towel or whatever, and we're going to clean this off so that we can start our next step of weathering. So give me a second, I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back. I've got my paper towel here, and I've got just 50% alcohol. That'll do more than what you need to do. You're not trying to strip anything, you're just trying to clean, right? So just give it a quick wipe. You're just getting rid of dust, paint residue, things like that. And that's all you're trying to do. That's it, that's all. So now that that's clean, try not to touch it with your oily fingers or anything like that. So now, grab our wet paint palette here. As you see, I've been using it before for the rest of the vehicle. So we're going to start off with your lighter rust, okay? And give it a good shake. It's not going to take much, so a couple little drops, that's it. Get the water out and ready. Now I like to wet my brush just a little bit. Now what you're trying to do is, in these lighter areas, you want to try and get rid of that white again, right? So I'm going to make a rusting patch. And if you look at rust, it goes from the lighter color of your body color because it's faded and rusting. Then it gets down into the rust color and the metal and stuff like that. So you're trying to go from your main color into a dark, dark rust. And that's your heavy rust. Now, in this case, I'm not using a whole lot of this because this one here, I don't want it as a full rusted vehicle, but I want it sun beaten, weathered. So there will be a little bit. I'm going to be relying more on my two washes here, as these are quite thin, and it's going to give me the more of the water surfaced rust look instead of the heavy eaten away metal. Okay, so we got that color on. We're going to clean up our brush. We're going to go into the next color, right? Now, you can do this in many different ways, and all it is layers after layers, repeating your steps until you get the desired look that you're looking for, right? Now, in my case, there's going to be very little dark brown, right? Which is going to be your heaviest rust. So I'm going to be relying more on my two washes, right? So the first one I'm going to do is the model wash. It's the light rust. Okay, so don't forget to give it a good shake. Now, this stuff is thin, and this will give you more of a dark rust, um, surfaced rust color, not so much as a heavy flaking rust. This will be a dark, a surfaced rust, right? Now, one thing you can do as well, and it'll help things flow a little better, is just take some water on your brush and just wet down everywhere, providing the rest of it's all dry. It helps. Now, as you saw, I was just going over like the white areas and stuff like that. You know, I do have a fan going, so it's kind of making stuff dry a little faster than I want it to, but that's okay. So with the wet brush, you dip it in here and just tap it around, right? Because we're just going to go over almost the whole thing, just mainly where you painted. And this will kind of dumb down the brightness of that white that's still showing a bit. Okay, so we're going to rinse off the brush, dab it off a little bit, and just kind of blend it through a little bit more. Now, being that this stuff is all watercolor, you know, it dries up pretty quick. And what I'm trying to do right now is one, blend it in here, but I'm trying to make sure I'm not having any hard edges of where it dried. All right. So as you can see, it's already pretty much dry or drying, right? So we can blow on that a little bit. Or even while it's still wet, you can take some of your light rust. Now this is a little heavier pigmented and a little thicker, but it'll still wash around like other colors, or like your last wash, right? So you're just gonna dab around mainly on your heavier rust areas. And you're gonna kind of somewhat rinse off your brush, make sure it's wet, and then you're just gonna come through, kind of blend that in. And in my case, I have to work quickly because I got like I said, I got a fan blowing. So I'm gonna use a little extra water. I'm just gonna dab around just to help make it flow and blend in a little better. And I'm just trying to stay on the areas of where it sanded through the color. I mean, if you go on the color, that's not a big deal. Okay, so there you go. We're starting to get that rusty orange look to it. You know, if you look at the corner here, it's bright, it's white. I haven't put anything yet, but here we've got this surfaced rust look to it, which is what I'm going for. So we're going to let this dry off a little bit more, and we're going to go from there. Okay, guys, now that it's all dry, so your next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your dark brown or your dark rust, whichever. I mean, you can get away with using different shades of brown to do this. It doesn't have to be these actual rust colors, but Vallejo makes these colors and I happen to have them. So now for your dark brown, what you're going to do is you're going to try and leave some of the other brown colors, right? And you're just going to go on the inside. Okay, I don't know if you can see that there. You can just faintly see that I've left some of the brown on the outside edge, the lighter brown. So that's what you're going to try and do. There you go. So I'm going to continue with this. Okay, so there you go. So we're going to let that dry up a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start taking some of the light rust and the orange rust and some water, and we're going to start making streaks and some, kind of almost where it would puddle. You got to think, if it rained, where would the water go, right? It would run down your A-pillar, it would run down the side here and down here. It would pool up on this drip edge all along the top of the cab, um, and other things, a little bit off of here. So I'm going to get these ones done up, right? All of this stuff and a couple other little spots. And then when I come back, we're going to do the streaking and, pooling and stuff like that. And we'll go from there. Okay, now that I've got the rest of it done, I've done some chipping along the door where they get in and out, door handle, where the pogo stick is. Maybe they've hit it a bunch of times, any of the scrapes and peels of the stickers or the emblems and stuff on the doors. Maybe something hit it, things like that. You think of where your wear and tear would be. Like on this side, there's hardly ever a passenger, but on the driver's side, I've got some window wear, or maybe his arm was hanging out or something. Around where the door handle will be, where they always grab it. Stuff like that. Um, you're not going to have as much dark rust, right? The heavy rust on an up and down as you would on a horizontal, right? So because your water is going to pool more on a flat surface than on a vertical surface, right? So you got to think of that. Now for the rust and streaks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush in water, right? So that there's quite a bit of water. And then I'm going to let the water pool on this area, right? So doesn't matter. Get a good bunch on there. All right, because when this dries, that'll all go away. Now, I'm even going to let it run down like this, okay? So I'm going to take my light rust wash, and I'm just going to dab it in there, and you'll see that it starts to flow, right? And it doesn't have to be heavy, right? As long as it's in there. You can always add more water. It can be speckled, as you can see there, right? You can make it heavier. If you have a little too much water, dry off your brush and just touch it. It'll soak up the water. Just like that, right? And you can go back in, touch it again, get it right down in those crevices. You'll see it flow along there, okay? Now, same thing. Your hinges are going to be rusty, so I'm not even drying off my brush. I'm just still have paint on it. Water will help it make it flow. Now, you got to think of where rust would run down, right? So, up here I've got some rust, so I'm going to wet that because I haven't put anything on that yet. Okay, I'm going to grab some of my light rust. Again, same as we did on the top. Let it blend around, right? Let it come down the side. But now, just with the very tip of the brush, I'm going to let it streak. Okay. Now, if you want to help that along, you can just use a little bit of water. Now, this will dry fairly strong. Okay. Now, you can also go back into your light rust, or like your other orange rust, and maybe this one. And I think I got to put more down. It doesn't take much. Now, wet on wet. Okay, don't let it dry. Just let it tap that one. Get rid of some of that. So I got too much on there. The water will blend that around. let it run down on the lip over here, you know. There's a little bit of a body line there, so it would pool on that a bit. Come back down here. Now it's probably going to hit this vent. It would come down to here somewhere, and it'd also come off this side. Right? Because this truck sits around quite a bit, right? So it's gonna have a bunch of uh, rust runs and stuff because it doesn't get used as much as the other newer trucks. So there we go. So same thing, we can have, a couple rust runs up here. Obviously it's running down off of this roof somehow and getting onto this. So I'll have a couple here. There is no wrong way to do this. Okay. You can even touch up on top of the dark that you did, and that'll help blend things in a little bit more. Like I said, it's all in layers. So you're going to keep going over and over until you get the desired effect that you're looking for. You can always use water while it, blend it around again. Very diluted on your brush. Now I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to wet my brush a little bit, and I'm going to some off of this door handle. You can see that I didn't even clean off my brush. I still have color in it. All right, a little bit of rust color inside the scrapes on the decal. All right, we're going to grab a little bit more of the orange here. Dab it off a little too much. We're going to make a dark streak coming down. Now, if it's wet, you see how the water, I don't know if you can see that or not. Here. Because the decal is wet and the edge is wet, it wants to flow along that edge, right? So you can come back in here, clean your brush off really good if you want. Throw a little bit of water and just wet things down a bit. All right? Just give it a little bit of pooling of water, not much, even along the bottom of the decal, because surface tension wants to pull rust and water along the edges of stuff. And you're going to grab just a tiny bit of color on your brush. And again, just a tiny bit of color. Just a couple drips in there. Clean it off a little bit. Some of the other color. Let it run down. Same thing down here where I've got chipping and stuff. I can wet that. And if you notice, I'm hardly ever actually cleaning my brush. I'm leaving excess color because that allows for blending. Touch that again. I'm going to just touch it in a couple spots. Sometimes all I do is just wipe off the brush just a little bit, just to get rid of some of the excess paint and water. And again, if you got too much like here, just dry off your brush, just wipe it off. Sorry if I'm not staying in picture here, I'm trying. So yeah, that's what you're looking for to get that rusty look, and it's just layer after layer. So again, we're going to go to this corner. I just want to put a little bit of color on there, so we'll even get a little bit of a run. Let it sit on top of this here. So I'm going to grab my one color of orange. Sometimes it's not even surfaced rust, it's just faded through, right? So you don't want to add too much. So that's what we're going to do all the way around. And that's how you get your effect for rusting, streaking, pooling, you know. So let me know what you think in this. I'm going to make this a separate video. So yeah, because right now I'm pushing almost 30 minutes. I could probably cut it down a little bit with some time lapsing. But yeah, this is going to be a separate tutorial. I'll mark it as such. And yeah, you'll see this finished in the next Autocar A64B video. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions, leave all those comments and questions down in the comments section. Follow me on Instagram and my Facebook group. Make sure to hit that like button if you like what this is. If you want to see a different technique, I can show you sponging and stuff like that and chipping. And yeah, like I said, give me a follow on my Instagram. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button so you don't miss out. If you want to help out the channel, I have a PayPal me link down in the description. Don't be afraid to do it. It's fun, it's relaxing, and all you have to do is think of where would rust want to be, where it would want to sit. It doesn't have to be straight and perfectly curves. It's all jaggedy as you saw me do, just wiggle around, just using the tip. You're not loading up the brush a whole lot. So next time that you do a rusting one, make sure you do it your way. Until next time, later.